A major American city is preparing for deep internal cuts. 500 positions, at least $100 million in personnel spending, and a budget deficit approaching $900 million. The directive came directly from the office of Mayor Daniel Lurie. City departments have been instructed to eliminate at least 500 jobs. Some of those positions are currently filled, which means layoffs are not hypothetical. They are coming. The city is staring at an $877 million budget deficit, nearly $1 billion short. And according to city leadership, part of the pressure stems from federal reductions tied to President Donald Trump and cuts to healthcare spending streams that cities have relied on for years. This is not a minor adjustment. This is a fiscal alarm bell. An internal email from the mayor's budget director made the tone clear. The city cannot sustain current spending levels. Personnel costs must shrink. Departments have been given a deadline, March 12th. Respond. Cut positions, reduce contracts, scale back overtime. That's the order. Behind the numbers lies a stark reality. Personnel spending represents one of the largest components of any municipal budget. Police officers, public health workers, social services staff, administrative support, infrastructure teams. Cutting 500 positions is not simply trimming excess, it is reshaping how city government operates. And this isn't the first round. Last year, the administration proposed cutting around 150 filled positions and eliminating roughly 1,000 unfilled roles. That plan triggered fierce resistance from public sector unions. After negotiations, the final impact was smaller. Around 40 workers ultimately lost their jobs. Now the scale is much larger. 500 positions represent a far more visible contraction, especially in a workforce totaling roughly 34,800 employees. That may sound like a small percentage, but politically it is significant, and financially it signals urgency. The largest department in the city, the Public Health Department, has already been told it must cut approximately $20 million in staff costs. That could translate into up to 100 staff members. In addition, another $20 million in department contracts must be reduced. Public health is not a peripheral service. It is foundational. It intersects with homelessness, addiction treatment, emergency response, disease prevention, mental health services, and community clinics. When staffing shrinks, service capacity shrinks with it. The deeper issue is structural imbalance. City departments had submitted their proposed budgets for the coming year. They suggested eliminating roughly 100 positions. The mayor's office deemed that inadequate. That gap tells you something important. Departments do not believe cuts of this magnitude are operationally comfortable. The mayor's office believes they are financially necessary. This tension is about more than numbers. It is about competing definitions of sustainability. Operational sustainability says, maintain staffing to preserve service levels. Fiscal sustainability says, reduce spending before deficits spiral. Right now, fiscal sustainability is winning, and the pressure is not limited to personnel. Departments are also being told to cut contracts and reduce overtime. That suggests the deficit cannot be solved through attrition alone. It requires structural expense reduction. Why is the deficit so large? Part of the answer lies in federal funding dynamics. Healthcare reimbursements and federal contributions often support local health systems and social programs. When federal spending contracts, cities must either absorb the cost, reduce services, or find alternative revenue. Municipal budgets are not flexible instruments. Revenue sources, property taxes, sales taxes, business taxes, fluctuate with economic cycles. Expenditures, particularly labor costs, tend to grow steadily. When those curves diverge, deficits widen. An $877 million deficit is not cosmetic. It is historic for a city government, and deficits of that scale carry risk. Credit ratings, borrowing costs, infrastructure financing, pension obligations all become more difficult when fiscal stability erodes. That is the environment facing this administration. But the politics of layoffs are never simple. Public sector unions are powerful stakeholders. They represent teachers, healthcare workers, transit operators, emergency responders, clerical staff, the people who keep cities functioning. Last year's proposed cuts met fierce pushback. Negotiations reduced the impact. This time, the target is more than 3 times larger. Resistance is expected again. The next several months will likely involve intense back-and-forth negotiations between department leaders, union representatives, and the mayor's office. The process is structured but political. Departments submit revised proposals. The mayor prepares a formal budget in June. The city's supervisors vote in July. Between now and then, every position on the chopping block will be debated. The stakes extend beyond payroll. When cities cut staff, service delivery changes. Response times may lengthen. Caseloads may increase. Administrative backlogs may grow. Public perception may shift. And in an era when urban governance is already under scrutiny, from homelessness to public safety to public health, visible service reduction carries political consequences. For Mayor Lurie, this is a defining moment. He inherited fiscal pressure, he faces federal funding volatility, he must balance political realities with financial arithmetic, cut too little and the deficit worsens, cut too aggressively and public backlash intensifies. Municipal governance rarely offers clean solutions. There is also a longer-term question looming behind this year's cuts. Are these temporary corrections tied to a specific budget cycle? Or do they signal a broader realignment in how cities structure spending in a post-pandemic, post-federal expansion environment? Over the past several years, many cities expanded staffing and services with the help of federal relief funds. Those funds were designed as temporary stabilizers. As they phase out, structural deficits can emerge. The current deficit may be partly the result of that transition. If so, these cuts may represent the beginning of a multi-year adjustment, not the end. That possibility matters for employees, it matters for residents, and it matters for the city's long-term planning. There is also the symbolic dimension. City Hall ordering 500 job eliminations sends a message. Austerity has arrived. It tells employees that no department is immune. It tells unions that negotiations will be difficult. It tells taxpayers that fiscal stress is real. But it also tells bond markets and financial analysts that leadership is willing to act before the deficit becomes unmanageable. Municipal finance is a balancing act between political popularity and fiscal credibility. Right now, credibility is being prioritized. What remains uncertain is how the reductions will be distributed across departments beyond public health. Will public safety be affected? Housing services? Infrastructure maintenance? Administrative functions? Those details will shape public reaction. For residents, the concern is practical. Will essential services degrade? Will wait times increase? Will city responsiveness decline? For employees, the concern is personal. Will their position survive? Will workload increase for those who remain? For unions, the concern is structural. Will this set a precedent for further contraction? And for city leadership, the concern is systemic. Can the budget be stabilized without undermining governance capacity? Over the coming months, those questions will move from internal emails to public hearings. 500 positions, $100 million in personnel savings, an $877 million deficit, federal funding uncertainty. Those numbers define the current moment. But the real story will unfold in negotiations, in committee rooms, in union meetings, and in the final budget vote this summer. Municipal budgets are more than spreadsheets. They are reflections of priorities, choices about what a city values and what it can afford. In times of surplus, those choices are easier. In times of deficit, they are defining. Right now, City Hall has chosen contraction in order to preserve fiscal stability. Whether that choice restores balance or triggers deeper political conflict will become clear in the months ahead. One thing is certain, the era of easy spending is over, and the next chapter of this city's governance will be written not in expansion, but in restraint.